and welcome to Legal Affairs. My name is Diamond Liddy, and I'm the public defender of the 19th Judicial Circuit. You are going to hear today about an incredible program that actually has been around for a while, but it is not as well known as it should be because the work they do is really phenomenal. And I want to introduce our guest, Isis LaRose, she has a very long title, so...
VP of Strategic Partnerships and Market Development for the organization Better Together.
Okay, and the organization is Better Together, and boy, does that say it all. Isis, let's start with you first. Tell me, you're the vice president of this program, but where did you come from? What's your background? Give us that.
So my background's actually in the medical fields. I wanted to be a foster family, and my husband told me I was crazy, and that wasn't happening. My kids were 4 and 7 at the time, and he was just afraid of what that would look like, length of time, court involvement, behaviors that would come along with that, and so he told me no. And so I kept searching for something that we can do as an entire family, and I found Better Together, and I thought it was a happy medium.
Okay, well, wait a minute. Let's back up a little. Better Together then has been around for how long?
So we got started back in 2015 over in Naples in Southwest Florida.
Okay, but it's just moved here, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so in 2015 it started in Naples, and give us an overview.
Yeah, so we started over in Naples. We're now in 27 counties, and we started our expansion here into this region last August.
Okay.
And one of the reasons we expanded into this area is because they've seen a 25% increase in kids entering foster care here in this area. And a lot of the reasons, over 80% of the kids that enter foster care are entering because of neglect. And neglect is preventable if the families just have some support.
Right.
And so that's part of the reason we expanded into this area.
Well, and as we know, dependency court is where children go who are abused or neglected. But you take the abuse out, then it's just neglect, sometimes because of poverty, correct?
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Okay. Define, most people know the definition, but just so we're all clear, define what foster care is.
So foster care, it's when there's already been abuse or neglect in that family. And so they're too far down that pipeline at that point for us to be able to step in, and the system has enough to remove the kids from the families, and the families get this crazy case plan that I always say would be really difficult for me to do without family, without support. I'd be drowning in a lake. But these families get it done. They get their kids back, many of them, but a lot of them are still in the same situation they were to begin with. They don't have support. And so 46% of those kids re-enter the system at one point or another. Wow.
And ultimately, if the parent is unable to complete the provisions of the agreement that they are supposed to, for whatever reason, they really are bad parents, they really, whatever, then ultimately the child can get, or children can get permanently removed from them, correct?
Exactly. And the sad part is over 80% of the kids that enter foster care are entering solely because of that reason, just neglect. So poverty, lack of support, maybe a single parent that's struggling with homelessness, which most families in our area are a paycheck away from being homeless, or a single parent that has a medical emergency, short-term incarceration. Those are all reasons that are preventable if the families just had someone to step in and care for their children temporarily.
Okay. Wait a minute, 80%?
Over 80% of the kids that enter foster care enter simply because of neglect and the lack of support.
Okay, and once they've entered foster care, that is not, that's permanent?
That is permanent until they complete a case plan through the state. When and if they get that done.
Okay, so foster care can be temporary, but it can be permanent if the parental rights have been terminated by a court order, correct?
Exactly.
I remember when I was doing dependency cases, we called it the civil death penalty, for a lack of better term. Okay, so Better Together, obviously by its name, is an alternative to foster care, correct? Is that a
So
good?
it's a preventative program to prevent
Okay.
kids from entering foster care.
Okay. And tell me how it works.
So what we do is we provide preventative and supportive services to the families in the community that are struggling with those things I mentioned before, whether it's incarceration, medical emergencies, homelessness. And we do that through two programs, our Better Families program and our Better Jobs. Our Better Families program has two support options. It has our volunteer mentors, who we connect to families that don't necessarily need us to care for their children, but they need help getting connected to community resources, plugged into the community. They need help putting their goals on paper and coming up with a how-to on accomplishing them. A lot of the families we connect to, they just don't know what they don't know.
Right.
And so those
right.
mentors will walk alongside them and support them in that. And then we have those volunteer host families that will step in and care for kids short term while families work to navigate a crisis or a situation.
Wow.
And so while we're caring for their kids, we have family care coordinators who are essentially our case managers who are walking alongside them, guiding them, and making sure that they're accomplishing what they need to accomplish while the host families are caring for their children.
Okay. How many children currently? Now, you just started, what, a year and a half ago, basically? Or-
Not even a year ago, just this past August in this area.
Past August. Okay. How many children are you serving, or families are you serving?
So since we began as a whole back in 2015, we've served over 8,000 kids with a 98% success rate. Here in this area, since we started the idea of expanding here, we've
Right.
served over 20 kids already.
Oh, wow. Now, do you have a physical place, or how does this work?
So we are actually 100% privately funded. We don't take any government money whatsoever. And so we are good stewards of our funding. So all of our employees work remotely. Although the work remote is a loose term, so we all work in our cars. I call my car my mobile office. The idea is that we want our teams to be out in the community, connecting to the families that could use our help, or connecting to those that can connect us to families. And so we're really working out in the community at all times.
Okay, so you're not bricks and mortar. You kind of oversee how many people are in your organization?
So total statewide, we have...
No, in this area.
Just here in this area, we have 3 full-time team members, and we're hiring for 4 additional team members.
Okay. And what they will do, they will not take the children in. They will oversee the taking of the children in, or the person who connects them with community service things, etc. Is that
yes,
fair?
So we partner with churches in the community, and that's how we recruit our volunteers.
Oh,
and so
okay.
they are overseeing the families that we're serving, as well as the volunteers that are serving kids.
Okay. Wow. Now, okay, so you work out of the churches and get your volunteers from the churches. How do you get your referrals of children?
So 60% of our referrals come directly from the Department of Children and Families, families that they encounter that don't warrant the state's intervention, but they know if they're not connected to support now, they could end up that far down that river to need further intervention from the state.
Gotcha.
Those are the families they connect to us. And then the rest of the referrals come directly from the community, whether it's through our church partners, public defender's office, local hospitals, lawyers in the community, just anybody who touches at-risk families in the community is able to refer.
And I'm sure you have met with, or whatever, the dependency lawyers, or talked to some of them to make sure they know about. I mean, I just feel so badly that I stumbled upon your organization, because, oh my goodness, what a great thing. But I didn't even know it, and that's my job to know about things like you know.
Yes, well, I always say the more people that know about what we do, the less kids that enter foster care. And so I actually came across you because I met with the reentry team for the jail, and she's like, you need to meet with Miss Diamond. I'm like, great, get me connected.
No, what a wonderful thing. Okay, let's back up a little. If you want, because people are watching this, and hopefully you'll get some money. And let's back up the money, because I want to do a shout out for Southern Eagle. You said you're funded totally by private donations, which is incredible to me. But didn't Southern Eagle give you a big shot in the arm to get you started?
They did. They provided the seed money for us to be able to expand into this region to begin with, and we're extremely grateful for their support.
Wow. Okay, but you need more money, so let's put that on the table. But you need volunteers to take in the children. First of all, how do you volunteer?
So it's very easy. So that's actually when I came across Better Together, I convinced my husband to let us be a volunteer host family. So my family and I have hosted 23 kids in our home over the last 6.5 years. And I'm a full-time working mom with a very busy schedule. So it's something that many of us can do. It's a very simple process. It's a one-night training. We do a level 2 background check, and then we do a home study.
What's a level 2 background check?
So a level 2 background check is fingerprints that go through the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. So it's the same background check that foster families obtain in the state of Florida.
Okay. So if you've had any arrests, period, it's going to come up.
Right. So if there are any arrests or anything on the background, we want to make sure that these are families in the community that can care for kids in their home safely.
Okay.
And we create a trust in the community with parents that need our support. And so we want to make sure that our volunteers are vetted. And so they have that level 2 background check. We do a home study of their home. Our home studies are nothing like the foster care system because it is community based. The kids don't need to have their own space or their own room. It could be a pack and play, it could be a blow-up mattress, a couch. The idea is that we're providing a safe place for these kids to sleep temporarily so that the parents can do what they need to do really quickly and keep their kids together.
Okay, let's back up. Temporarily. How long is temporarily? A day, a week, a month, a year, or can it vary?
It varies, so it can be anywhere from just 24 hours to 90 days depending on the situation, and we're flexible on that if it makes sense.
Right.
So we've hosted kids for up to a year in the past.
Okay.
And so sometimes it's just a simple single parent that goes into the hospital and gets hospitalized.
Or gets incarcerated.
Or gets incarcerated. Yes, those are all situations where sometimes it's a day, 2 or 3 days a week. You know, we think and we believe that the kids shouldn't be removed from the parents for something so temporary if we can help the parent navigate that.
But I think it's important to make it clear that you work closely, obviously, with Department of Children. You don't get funding from them, but you work closely with Department of Children and Families. Mm-hmm. So they, for lack of better wording, are really the experts on what child or children need to be removed, period, into foster care temporarily or permanently. But these are children that don't totally fit that criteria. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. These are children that really, if the parents had just the support of someone to step in, the foster care system wouldn't need to at all.
Gotcha. Okay. For example, a single mother has no family here. Her family is up north or whatever. The father is gone, and she's hospitalized for 2 or 3 days. We don't want to put the child in foster care. She hasn't hurt the child. She feeds the child, whatever, but she just needs that respite care, for lack of a better term, and then we'll reunite with her family.
Exactly. So all we do is we connect her to a vetted volunteer host family that can care for her kids for those 2 or 3 days until she's released, and then we reunite.
Okay. And this is all overseen by DCF, Department of Children and Family, or no?
No, it's all community-based, completely private, outside of the system.
Oh, okay. Okay. Now, what do you do? We're jumping around here because this is so fascinating. But what do you do if you get a child into a vetted family for the 2 or 3 days and it comes to light that the child has been abused, that, you know, this is not a perfect, wonderful situation that just needs a short-term fix?
Right. So at the end of the day, we are all mandated reporters, but we do have a 98% success rate. So 98% of the families that we serve through our program do stay together.
Okay. Okay. So rarely does that happen.
Very rarely.
Okay. Now, I jumped around. I interrupted you. I want to volunteer.
Yep.
So where do I go? Do I go on the website? Do I call you? What do I do?
You can go directly to our website, which is bettertogetherus.org, and submit a Learn More volunteer form.
Okay.
One of our team members will contact you within 24 to 48 hours, and then we'll let you know when our next upcoming training is.
Okay.
So we usually host those on a monthly basis in the areas that we serve in. And from there, we have our own fingerprint machine, so we can fingerprint volunteers right there on the spot if they wish to proceed.
Right.
And then we can schedule that home study.
Okay, so the only two other steps are a home study and then the one-day training.
Yes.
Okay.
Volunteers can be approved in as quickly as 2 to 3 weeks.
Wow. Okay, so I want to be a volunteer. I meet the criteria, and what happens next if I end up getting a child, or what about, do you give like family some time to people, or can they say I only want one at a time, or what?
Absolutely, and that's why I always say we never have enough volunteers, because we offer so much flexibility to our host families.
Right.
So they get to tell us during the home study how many children they're willing to take, genders, ages, length of time, whether they need school or daycare or not. And then from there, when we start receiving the referrals from the community, we do a good job of matching them based on that home study criteria. And so when we call that volunteer, we call them almost with the little box with everything packaged with a bow on it, and we'll let that volunteer know, hey, you know, we have a 3-year-old little boy that needs to hosting for X amount of time, has school, doesn't, have childcare, doesn't. Is this a situation that you can help with? And they get to tell us whether or not they can serve in that moment.
Okay, and let's talk about for a minute about what happens when you have a child or a family, and you have the vetted family that can take them in. Do you call? I mean, can they say, "Oh no, this is a bad time. We all have COVID," or you know, that's too many children, or I mean, as a volunteer, are you kind of stuck or no?
Absolutely not. It's very flexible to their situation in that moment. So I always tell our volunteers, if it's not a good time, you have a busy work week, you're traveling, you have stuff going on, don't be afraid to tell us no. There's going to be needs where we'll call you for. So we'll call you again.
Okay. And how often does one of these vetted families get a child or a family if they're good and they are eager and they want to help?
So the needs are there. We are consistently getting referrals for St. Lucie County and the Treasure Coast as a whole. And so our biggest need right now is volunteers so that we can effectively meet those needs in the community. So we're kind of a revolving door because all of the situations range in length of time from just 24 hours to 90 days for the most part, with that average being 45 days. And so it's very much just up and down. We have busy seasons and low seasons. I would say right before school gets out around this time,
is it busy season?
We get a little bit busier because this teachers start to notice, okay, the kids are going on summer break. They rely on school lunches. What can we do to support that family throughout the summer?
Oh, okay.
And then again, our referrals increase at the beginning of the school year as well, when kids start to come back into care with the schools in the district. And so it's really just up and down because we're such a revolving door of kids.
Do you get referrals from the school?
We do get referrals from the school district in other regions. I've yet to connect to St. Lucie County Public Schools directly, so I'm looking forward to doing that here in this area.
Oh, I see. So you're going to make that next step. Okay.
Exactly.
Well, you're probably crawling before you walk, which is a good thing because you've got to get your volunteers in line too. How many volunteer families do you have right now?
Across the region, we have 15 volunteer host families.
Okay, and when you say across the region, is that the 4-county area? Is that?
Yes, from Palm Beach County. Right now, our region consists of Palm Beach County to Brevard.
Oh, okay, okay. Now, after you place the child in a family, do the people that work for Better Together, do they show up out of the blue and give surprise visits just to make sure, or how does that work?
Not at all. So everything's planned. We do home visits. So our family care coordinators are in the homes with the volunteers on a weekly basis. One, not only to make sure the child's doing okay and that they have everything that they need, but also that our families are feeling supported because they are volunteers. They're not getting paid to do this, which is a big selling point, for lack of a better word, for the families that we're serving in the community. There's no ulterior motives for these families stepping in to care for these kids.
Right, right.
Just,
unlike foster parents.
Right.
You know.
These are just good people in the community that want to help bridge that gap.
And let me make it clear, I'm not dinging at all. You know, I'm just amazed at foster parents. I mean, they take in, you know, through Department of Children and Family, you know, they're taking in, you know, children who are sick, who are handicapped, who are blind, who, you know, I mean, very difficult situations. But they do get a small stipend for doing so.
So there's always going to be a need for foster care, right? There's evil in this world, and there's situations that really need the oversight of the department.
Right.
But if we could do a good job of keeping the kids out that don't need to be there to begin with, they have the opportunity to care for those families a lot better because they won't be as stretched as the system is today.
No, I gotcha. Let me ask you a very important question. Since you've been doing this, how many times have you placed a child with a family and it's blown up? It's the family isn't connecting, the child isn't happy. How many times does that happen?
Yeah, so well, we have a 98% success rate, but we're also serving messy families.
Right.
So these are families that don't know what they don't know. They might be struggling with addiction, with mental health, and so we do offer a lot of grace and support to the families that we're serving. But our volunteers get to do the fun part. They get to love on the kids, love on the families, build relationships with them. And we, as a team, are doing the heavy lifting. So we're the ones having the tough conversations with the parents. They know the goals right from the start, but if they veer off, we're having those tough love conversations and talking about how can we turn that ship around to get back on track.
You're talking about the parent of the child who is placed.
Correct.
Okay. I'm talking about
the volunteers.
Yeah. How often has that not worked?
Gosh, I've been a part of the team for a little over 6 years at this point, and I really haven't had much of an experience with the volunteers not being able to commit to a hosting and continue with a hosting.
Okay.
Because it
you
is
know, where they call you up and say, wait a minute, it's been 30 days now. I was hoping it would only be 15, or the child is really unmanageable. I can't deal with it.
So we ask a lot of questions during our intake process. We get to know the families, we get to know the kids. We know in advance if there's any behavioral issues or any concerns ahead of time. And then we also know the length of time, an approximate length of time that the hosting is going to take.
Okay, so they know that up front.
Yes.
Before they commit.
Now that said, there are instances and situations that come up. Let's say, for example, if we're serving a family that's homeless and they found an apartment, but the apartment's not going to be ready for 2 additional weeks, and it's taking a little bit longer to get them into placement. That is an opportunity for us to go to the host family and say, hey, you know, the apartment's taking a little bit longer. Would you be willing to continue hosting?
And or they've got a vacation planned. It's something really legitimate. I mean, you can go to another host family and rectify that. Wow.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Our goal is not to move kids, if at all possible. We want to make sure that there's not a lot of uplifting of the kids from home to home. But if it makes sense, like we're able to provide respite to that host family if they have something come up where one of their own children gets sick, or they had a pre-planned vacation, or you know, recently we had a host family that was pregnant and she got sick and had to go to the hospital. And so we were able to step in and provide her respite until she was released and back home.
Okay. Have you ever had the situation where the child is placed with the vetted family volunteer, and the mother gets out of the hospital, so the child can reunite with her, and they don't want to leave the family, the volunteer family?
I mean, these kids, for them, it's like going on a mini vacation, right? And that's how we present it. So they're going to mom's friend. It's like a mini vacation. They're going to stay with this family for X amount of time while mom and dad do what they need to do to get them back. And so the parents are having those conversations with the kids, but the great thing is all 23 kids that I've hosted, I still get to see them grow up. I still have relationships with their families. They're on my Facebook. I get to see photos of them. I get random text messages from them. And so they're building relationships. So they're never just gone out of their lives. They get to still keep that relationship going.
Well, you know, the way you describe it makes so much sense. I mean, and if you pitch it as you have, then all the normal things that would happen when they go to grandma and grandpa's or whatever, it would happen. You know, sometimes your child will go to the grandparents and they don't want to leave because it's so fun, but you know, that doesn't mean that the parent is a bad parent or they're not,
Exactly. We're creating very much of a co-parenting relationship amongst the host family and the placing parent. So they almost become extended family of each other.
I gotcha. Any situation, and we're almost out of time. I mean, this goes so fast, and there's so much for you to talk about. I know. And has there ever that in your 6 years? Well, since you've done it, I mean, have you had any bad experiences? Now, you be honest with us.
I'll be honest. It's not always unicorns and rainbows taking in additional kids into your home, right?
Yeah.
You're adding in an additional child to feed, to bathe, to put to sleep, to take to daycare or to school.
Right.
And I always laugh and say I have gotten the kids that I want to keep forever, and then the kids that are like, okay, we've got 5 more days. We can do this. But at the end, it's so worth it. It's so worth it to see the impact that you're having on that family, and I get chills talking about it. Just giving them the gift of time.
How old are your children?
My kids now are 14 and 11.
Okay. And they were cool with this all through these years?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, tell us about that.
My oldest wants to keep all of the kids. They absolutely loves them. The more the merrier. My youngest was my youngest. He was 4 when we first started, and he didn't love bringing in babies. He liked the kids that were his own age.
Oh, right,
But wasn't a big fan. He told me one day, Mom, can you please stop bringing babies to the house? But I really clearly remember about 1.5 years into hosting, we took a little girl on Christmas night, and that's when everything changed for him. And it kind of clicked. And so he asked to stay up and wait for her, and she didn't get to our house until about after midnight.
What was that situation? I'm just curious.
So Dad was a single parent, and he got an altercation with someone in his neighborhood on Christmas Eve, leading into Christmas morning, and he was arrested. And so if a host family didn't step in, the alternative would have been his daughter going into the foster care system for just less than 24 hours.
Now, who
that he was
referred
in
that
jail.
case?
That was from the Department of Children and Families that introduced us.
Oh, wow. Okay, so go ahead. I'm sorry.
And so she came in, and my youngest went up to the child protective investigator that dropped her off at my house and said, does she have any allergies? And she was dumbfounded. This little 4-year-old boy was asking this. And he went, and they picked out snacks together. He put them on the counter, wrote her name on them, and I absolutely did nothing that entire hosting. He woke up in the morning and made her breakfast, made her waffles that he could make, or poured her cereal. He would throw himself on the floor to make her laugh and just make her feel comfortable. And I really saw just the turn in him and realizing what we were doing as a family. And so I say that that's my biggest, I love the lessons my kids have learned through this. I feel it's something I wouldn't have been able to instill in them as quickly as I have without volunteering for this organization.
Now, this is unbelievable. I am so proud of you. I am so proud of your organization. Again, give us the website so they can volunteer and send money.
Absolutely. So our website is bettertogetherus.org, and we also have a 24/7 on-call phone number that is 239-470-2733.
You are wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Really. Thanks.
Thank you.